Closer.
A photo is supposed to capture a memorable moment, one we can look back on and remember the feeling it brought. Joy, humor, happiness. But some photos, they capture something much darker than that. Fear, anger, an eerie calm before the storm. Tonight, we dive into 10 of the most disturbing photos ever taken. So as you cuddle under your blanket, your eyes watching your screen intently, ready to see something that should never have been captured on film, do one thing. Make sure to leave a light on. This is the Uruguayan rugby team, captured before their fateful flight into the Andes on October 13th, 1972. Everyone smiles. Everyone looks alive, full of hope, full of camaraderie. A group frozen in a single moment, completely unaware that, in just a few hours, their lives would be transformed forever. The joy captured in this photograph is innocent, fragile, almost cruelly fleeting. Hours later, some of them would find themselves trapped in the snow, facing conditions so extreme that survival seemed impossible. Out of the 45 people on that plane, only 27 survived the initial crash. The 27 survivors had to wait and pray for help to come. They were stranded on a high-altitude plateau, surrounded by jagged peaks, with temperatures that could freeze exposed skin in minutes. Snowstorms buried them. The threat of an avalanche was constant, and there was no guarantee that anyone would ever find them. Food ran out. Hope was tested. Every day became a battle not just against the environment, but against despair itself. They were stuck in a situation of life and death, of unimaginable cold, hunger, and isolation, between the gray lines of survival and morality. After 72 days of waiting, they were finally rescued. Sadly, out of the initial 27 survivors, only 16 of them would be going home. The survivors faced choices no human should ever have to make. Starvation, cold, and sheer desperation pushed them past every limit, body, mind, and soul. To the world outside, what they did might seem unthinkable, horrifying beyond measure, but for those trapped in that frozen wilderness, there was no other way. With no food left, they made a pact. Their bodies would sustain their teammates. In that grim reality, they looked to each other not with judgment, but with understanding. If they couldn't survive, at least someone else might. Some decisions are born from necessity, yet echo through a lifetime, haunting those who live to tell the tale. This photograph is more than a memory of who they once were. It is a whisper from the past, a reminder of how quickly life can twist, how fragile everything we take for granted truly is. A single snapshot, once bright with laughter and hope, now stands as a monument to tragedy, to resilience, to the stubborn, unyielding will to survive. Decades have passed, yet when we look upon it, we don't just see faces frozen in time. We see courage etched in their eyes. We see endurance written in their posture. We hear a story carried across generations, that even in the warmest, happiest moments, life can change in the blink of an eye and leave a shadow that lingers far longer than we expect. A mountain of bones. A man stands tall, proud on top of hundreds, maybe thousands of skulls, bleaching under the relentless sun. Looking closer, You can feel the devastation. The man is dwarfed by the scale of death beneath his feet, as if the land itself is screaming. This photograph, taken in the 19th century, is more than history. It is a haunting record of the cold, calculated tactics used against indigenous people and the animals central to their lives. The bison were the lifeblood of the Plains tribes. Every part of the animal was used: meat for food, hides for clothing, bones for tools, and sinew for thread. Their presence shaped culture, spirituality, and survival. To indigenous communities, bison were sacred. They were not just animals, they were providers, teachers, and symbols of life itself. Settlers understood this. They realized that by destroying the bison, they could dismantle entire communities without facing direct conflict. The eradication of bison was not a side effect of expansion. It was a weapon of war. Before colonization, bison roamed the Great Plains in staggering numbers, estimated between 30 to 60 million. By 1889, after relentless hunting, only 456 purebred bison remained. This wasn't survival. It was extinction by design. The indigenous communities suffered in parallel. Tribes such as the Kiowa, Cheyenne, and Lakota were driven from their ancestral lands, forced onto reservations where survival was no longer dictated by tradition, but by government rations. Families were separated, sacred practices were outlawed, and a culture that had thrived for centuries was under siege. This wasn't just displacement, it was cultural annihilation. The trauma of this period resonates across generations, shaping lives and communities to this day. Indigenous elders tell stories of hunger, loss, and resilience, and every bison skull in that photograph is a silent witness to the suffering that came with this deliberate destruction. The decimation of the bison was catastrophic for the ecosystem. These massive creatures once shaped the plains, grazing in ways that preserved grasslands, supported other species, and maintained the balance of the environment. Their near extinction disrupted the land itself. Even today, the bison is listed as near threatened, a reminder that the damage wrought over a century ago continues to ripple across both human and natural worlds. Conservation efforts are ongoing, but the scars remain, both ecological and cultural. This photograph is not just a record of the past. It is a warning, a mirror. It forces us to confront the human capacity for destruction when power and greed override compassion and respect. It whispers across time. History is written by the bloody hands of the victorious, but truth has a voice that cannot be silenced. Every skull tells a story. Every empty plain echoes the absence of what was lost. In the indigenous communities, those scarred endure. Their resilience is a testament to survival, a reminder that even in the face of calculated destruction, life and culture can persist. At first glance, it seems like just a typical class photo. Students sitting together, smiling at the camera, celebrating the end of high school and the start of life beyond these walls. All fun and games, right? But look closer. This photograph captures the calm before one of the most infamous acts of violence in modern history. In the top left corner, two figures playfully aim at the camera, smiles frozen in time. At first, it seems innocent, almost mischievous. Yet, with hindsight, this small, seemingly ordinary gesture takes on a chilling significance. a subtle foreshadowing of the horror that would soon unfold. Just 2 weeks after this photo was taken, tragedy struck. On April 20th, 1999, at Columbine High School in Colorado, the ordinary rhythm of school life was violently shattered. 2 students, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, armed and determined, carried out a planned attack that would forever alter the lives of classmates, teachers, and families. A place meant for learning and community was transformed into a scene of chaos, fear, and disbelief. The attack was swift, shocking, and unimaginable. Teachers and students were forced into situations no one could have prepared for, while first responders arrived at a scene that would be seared into the nation's memory. A stark reminder of how quickly normalcy can collapse. And at the heart of that day were the victims. In total, 13 students and 1 teacher were killed. And in 2025, another student passed away due to complications from injuries she sustained that day. Behind the smiles in this photograph were real lives. Students with families who loved them. Futures they were just beginning to imagine. And dreams that would never be fulfilled. They were friends, teammates, artists, and thinkers. Their laughter once echoed through hallways and classrooms. Their presence woven into everyday moments now remembered only through stories and grief. To remember them is to look beyond the violence and recognize the humanity and individuality of every life that was lost. This photograph, frozen in time, now carries a weight it was never meant to bear. What was once a simple snapshot of youth and camaraderie now holds an unsettling stillness, casting a shadow over every smiling face. Even decades later, the memory of Columbine continues to shape conversations around school safety, community, and loss. A single ordinary moment captured on film now stands as a symbol, not just of tragedy, but of remembrance, reflection, and the lives that should never be forgotten. A photo meant to capture a lighthearted moment. Funny hair, 2 smiling faces on a hike. It looks harmless, wholesome even. Just another memory meant for a photo album, the kind that fades quietly into family history. But this photograph holds more than a simple moment of joy. What you're looking at was taken of brothers Michael and Sean McWilkin, just moments before they were struck by lightning. The brothers were hiking that day with their older brother, their older sister Mary, and Mary's friend Margie. On August 20th, 1975, the group set out for the summit of Morro Rock in Sequoia National Park. Surrounded by towering stone, open sky, and the quiet confidence that comes with a successful climb. After reaching the top, they paused, wanting to mark the achievement with a few photographs before heading back down. According to Michael, he took a photo of Mary first. Then she raised the camera and aimed it at him and Sean. As the shutter clicked, Michael lifted his right hand into the air. Almost immediately, something felt wrong. The ring he was wearing began to buzz, loud enough for everyone to hear. A sound that didn't belong in the moment. A warning they didn't yet understand. Then came the cold. The temperature dropped suddenly, the air shifting in a way that made the group uneasy. Dark clouds were moving in faster than expected. Instinct took over, and they began their descent, moving quickly, aware now that something had changed. But they didn't get far. Before they could reach safety, both Michael and Sean were struck by lightning. Against all odds, they survived, with Sean suffering severe third-degree burns. A near impossible twist of fate, forever tied to the photographs taken just moments earlier. Images meant to preserve a happy memory instead became markers of how close they came to tragedy. That simple snapshot, once taken in laughter and celebration, now stands as a chilling reminder. In a single instant, the ordinary can become extraordinary. Danger can strike without warning, and survival is never guaranteed. A photograph meant to capture a moment, never meant to record how close it came to being the last. His eyes are looking directly at the camera. Unblinking. Locked in place. But they aren't really looking at the person holding the lens. They're fixed on something else. Something only he can see. The grin on his face is unnerving. Too wide. Too deliberate. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Whatever is happening behind them is far removed from joy, or humor, or peace. This is not a pose. This is not playfulness. This is a man frozen in a moment where his mind has gone somewhere his body cannot follow. This photograph shows a World War I soldier suffering from what was once called shell shock, but what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder. At the time, there was no real understanding of what prolonged exposure to violence, death, and constant fear could do to the human mind. There were no words for it, no treatment, only confusion and judgment. Shell shock was not rare. Tens of thousands of soldiers experienced it during the war. Men who had survived months in the trenches, endured constant bombardment, and witnessed horrors unimaginable. Some could no longer function in everyday life. Some trembled. Some screamed. Some withdrew entirely into themselves. Many were labeled weak or cowardly, punished for a condition born entirely from the relentless brutality of the battlefield. To the untrained eye, the image is disturbing because of the expression. But what it truly captures is far more unsettling. This is a human mind exposed to the absolute limits of horror. A mind that has witnessed what people can do to one another when empathy is stripped away, and survival becomes the only rule. This is a mind pushed beyond endurance, until something inside gives way. He survived the battlefield, but something followed him home. People like to say that photographs capture souls, but this one captures something else entirely. It captures the moment a soul fractures. Not shattered all at once, but spilled quietly, invisibly, under the weight of things no person was ever meant to carry. And the most unsettling part isn't the grin. It's the realization that this damage isn't visible in most photographs. This one just happened to catch it staring back. The image is haunting. Omaira Sanchez is just 13 years old. She became trapped beneath the rubble of her home after a mudslide caused by a volcanic eruption on November 13, 1985. The volcanic eruption devastated the Colombian town of Armero, causing panic to spread throughout the town, and like Omaira, thousands of people suffered the same fate. At the time this famous picture was taken, she was alive, but only barely. Above her, rescuers dig frantically. The scrape of metal on stone echoes through the ruins. Machines groan, shudder, whine. Every sound served as a reminder of time slipping away. Every moment, a cruel tease of what cannot be undone. Her eyes stare steadily at them, wide, unwavering, silent. A child suspended between fear and resignation. A life caught between hope and inevitability. And then, silence. Her body is eventually recovered, but the memory lingers. That photograph, frozen in time, is a silent testament to courage, to fragility, and to the cruelty of chance. 41 years later, and this photograph still haunts as deeply as it did when this disaster first struck. The memory of her and the 23,000 others who died still haunt the ruined town to this day. Symbolic tombs, a memorial dedicated to Elmira, and a monument stand in the center of the main plaza serve as a stark reminder of what happens when the cruel power of nature decides to strike. Elmira's story reminds us that even in bravery, even in life, the world can be merciless. And in her stillness, in those final moments, we feel it pressing in. That life and death can exist side by side, separated by inches, by moments, by the indifferent weight of reality. At first glance, it's just writing on a wall. Someone left a note of flirtation in lipstick, or a child playing with mommy's makeup. But these are not harmless words. They are a confession, a taunt, a signature left behind by a killer. The messy scrawl reads, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." The letters smear across the surface, uneven, urgent, and frantic. Each stroke whispers of obsession, of violence, of a mind that wants to be seen, remembered, and feared. This was left by William Hurons, the man who would become infamous as the lipstick killer. When the message was discovered, the tension was palpable. Police and investigators hovered, afraid of what they might uncover next. Every passing minute seemed to stretch into eternity as the words were examined, measured, and photographed. The public reacted with fear and outrage. Newspapers splashed the letters across the front page. Citizens locked their doors, parents warned their children, and the city held its collective breath. The words on the wall became more than graffiti. They became a symbol of a predator on the loose. And yet, controversy soon followed. Many questioned the investigation, the confessions, and even Huron's guilt. Critics pointed to coercion, mental instability, and mishandled evidence, suggesting that the man behind the letters might not have acted alone or at all. The photograph of the lipstick message became a flashpoint for debate. Was this a confession, a staged act, or the work of a disturbed mind caught in a system eager for closure? It is a frozen moment of terror, captured not by a lens but by the hand of a murderer, or perhaps by the chaos of perception itself. The message exists in the space between what is read and what is felt, the unseen menace behind the letters, the intent that cannot be erased. Even decades later, staring at this photograph is enough to send a chill down your spine. It's not just the words themselves, it's the darkness behind them. The knowledge that someone somewhere wanted you to know he existed, and that fear itself was part of the message. This photograph is deceptively simple. 2 sets of tracks, etched into pristine snow, curling forward, into a whiteness so vast it swallows sound, swallows shape. At first, it seems innocent. Footprints in the snow. Harmless. Ordinary. But look closer, and you realize something darker lingers in the stillness. Kurt Dienberger's steps are careful, deliberate, alive with awareness. Every footprint a choice, every heartbeat a prayer. Beside him, Herman Bull's trail continues straight, unbroken, leading into the unknown, vanishing over the edge of a hidden cornice. leaving nothing behind but the tracks down the mountain. No scream, no struggle, only absence, only silence, only the snow holding the memory of what was taken. The mountain watches, silent, cold, patient, indifferent, and waiting. Always waiting. One trail leads back to life. One trail disappears forever. In this frozen frame, you can feel it. The shadow of inevitability is creeping in with each step. A reminder that even in beauty, even in calm, death can wait. Patient, silent, close. Existence and oblivion can be separated by nothing more than a breath, a shift of balance, a step off the line. Two paths, one preserved in life, one claimed by the mountain's frozen heart. And in the hush that follows, the snow seems to remember everything. The steps, the fall, the fear, and perhaps it remembers us too. When the atomic bomb hit Hiroshima, the flash seared everything in its path. Buildings crumbled, trees disintegrated, and streets melted into dust. Everything was consumed in an instant. Some people vanished immediately, vaporized, erased, leaving behind nothing but absence. For some, they left behind a mark. This photograph shows one of those marks left behind. A shadow burned into stone or concrete. A silhouette frozen in the precise instant life was snatched away. Not a ghost, not a haunting. Something far more unsettling. A permanent imprint of a presence that should have been, yet isn't. A life, erased in an instant, yet impossibly still visible. Science can explain it, of course. The person's body shielded the surface from the blast full force, leaving a shadow etched into reality. A mark of absence, a physical echo of something that no longer exists. But knowing the science doesn't soften the horror. It doesn't make the silence any less oppressive. It doesn't make the emptiness any less absolute. The most disturbing part? This shadow is the closest thing left to a human presence after total annihilation. A reminder that someone once stood here, laughed, walked, breathed. That someone lived. And now all that remains is a stillness so complete, so absolute, the ghost of a shadow, silent, permanent, unforgettable. Even now, decades later, the concrete remembers. It whispers the absence of a life that once was. And in that whisper, there is a horror that no words, no science, no history can ever erase. This photograph captures geologist David A. Johnston, taken mere hours before Mount St. Helens erupted, claiming his life in an instant. He's smiling, focused, completely unaware that he's standing in the path of unimaginable destruction. It is a portrait of quiet purpose, of curiosity, of humanity standing against the vastness of the natural world. You can see a life in motion, completely unaware of the shadow creeping closer with each heartbeat. The mountain loomed behind him, a sleeping giant, its power hidden beneath a serene, silent calm. The air carried the faint smell of sulfur and ash. The ground trembled beneath his feet, subtle but unrelenting. To him, it was just another day in the field. Another day studying the rhythms of the world. Moments later, his voice came over the radio, calm, precise. Vancouver, Vancouver. This is it. Those words. They mark the fragile boundary between observation and obliteration, between life as it is and life as it ends. The camera didn't merely capture a moment. It captured the last calm breath before catastrophe. The final instance of ordinary existence, frozen before nature's fury claimed everything. This photograph is more than last moment. It exposes the fragility of life, the invisible thread that separates now from never. In it, we are reminded that no matter how much we believe we understand death, we can never truly know how near it lies, or when it might claim us. These 10 photos each capture moments that leave you feeling disquieted, a feeling of unease, discomfort, or fear. But above all, they leave you with the realization that maybe behind some of your favorite photos, something might be lurking, waiting to be discovered. Something that darkens the meaning behind what its intentional capture was meant for. So tonight, as you look for the shadows behind memories captured on film, the shadows in your room growing too long and dark, the silence making it easier to hear the heartbeat in your ears, make sure to leave the light on.